Welcome to what's going to be the final episode of Series 2 of Stressing Values. And we've ended it on quite a high note with Maryam Torshizi from DeepSearch. She's got an awful lot to say as a recent startup in the last 3 or 4 years in very high-tech space of AI and in lots of publicity about it, but she's got a very sophisticated and very refined idea of exactly what benefits she is offering to her clients. And it's really quite targeted, quite acute, very thoughtful. And she's an engineer by experience and by education, and she's had to learn a lot about how to run a business, particularly around people and around marketing. So the conversation is very broad. It covers all of those aspects, what she's learned about how to work with clients. That's the majority of her role is the front end, working directly with clients, and how she's had to learn to manage people who are not engineers. The sales team in particular is quite illuminating, but others besides, and how her management style has changed quite significantly. You'll hear the kind of typical impetus and drive and passion that we often hear from startup entrepreneurs, mellowing and becoming and realizing quite intelligently that actually a more patient approach would probably bring more benefits, would probably help the client more, and definitely retain your staff better. So there's a lot of depth in her very thoughtful comments. And I think this interview is one to be commended, and it's a fitting end to Series 2. It really does bring together a lot of what we've been talking to other interviewees about, and I highly recommend it. I think you'll enjoy. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody, to the last in my second series of Stressing Values. And I think we're going to end it with quite a bang. Today we have Maryam Torshizi, who's the founder and CEO of DeepSearch Limited, which is a very interesting, a very topical company that's taken forward AI in some really quite creative ways. So I think you'll join me in being very interested in what she's got to say and how she's running her business in this new world. So welcome, Maryam. Thank you for coming on Stressing Values.
For having me.
I don't think I've done you a full service by introducing you merely as an AI business. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about yourself and about DeepSearch and what it does.
We started as a thematic solution, but then we realized we are actually a search engine because we ingest a lot of different data sources, media, audio, video, images, text, basically. And then we try to connect all of these data sets together. And we create this map of information. And then this map, you can basically query or contextualize with large language models in 3 different ways. A 4th way will come soon. So the first one is you can summarize points on this map. Second one, you can interact with it like just you would with the chatbots. And a 3rd way is to turn this entire map into a report that you could basically use to give you a consensus view of a topic you're interested in.
Wow. And how is that different to the popular perception of things like ChatGPT?
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time on data engineering. So when we say data engineering, we don't mean like just inputting data in Excel files. It's machine learning, basically end-to-end. So we use image to text, table to text, PDF to text, audio to text. So everything turns into a textual format. And then we apply advanced computational linguistics on top to clean this. And then we ingest that data for training purposes in our large language model. And as a result of the way we work with the data, we don't get hallucinations. Yes, you can avoid all of that.
Okay, because that's what ChatGPT is famous for, isn't it? Kind of making up new information.
With ours, you don't. You get proper references, like existing references, not hallucinated references.
Okay.
And it gives control to the end user. So the end user can see a chat interface or can see this map of information. And this map of information is every information that is out there about your topic. And so that gives you control. So you can say, oh, okay, well, I'm looking at, for example, Donald Trump, and what else can I see with Donald Trump? And it will give you all the ideas that you should perhaps use to do your search. And it's fantastic for ideation. It also allows you to get accurate answers on the questions you might have, or an accurate report, like a consensus report on a topic you're interested in. So these things actually ChatGPT doesn't do. So we are more targeted at research and insights for people who want to get insights into things, or investigators, basically. So 3 different fields, and research can be anything. Can be done by a portfolio manager, can be done by a head of research in some firm, or it can be done by an intelligence officer. So there are like different types of people who use it for research. Investigations can be done by media companies, by intelligence officers again. And then you've got the in-between, which is content generation and ideation.
So when you say intelligence officers, do you mean the enforcement agencies?
Yeah.
Police
so yes, not enforcement agencies, but more of other kinds of government agencies. So they work with defense predominantly.
Interesting. Wow. So very diverse. And so you had this vision, you pushed it forward through many months of without any money. You get the funding. It's a story in its own right. There's a whole interview just for that, I think. But and you got it started. Where do you see it going?
I have been, so I generally ignore the noise that is in the market as long as it is not affecting us a lot. So for example, when ChatGPT first created its front end and went to market, I think it was November 2022, people suddenly got excited, and I thought it was smoke and mirror, but basically just ignore it for now because nobody knows how they're going to use these. There's no application, it's just chatbots. And I was right. So I think a lot of people still struggle to find a use case for these sorts of applications. There is an application, it's a model basically, and I think people are struggling to integrate it. So I believe that the way we started going forward, we were unstructured predominantly. So we were just ingesting unstructured data. But because of the set of clients we got, we went down the path of structured, semi-structured, unstructured data, which means text, images, and videos and audios, plus Excel files that have got just numbers, plus Excel files that have got numbers and words. So we now ingest everything and anything basically, and you can then we link everything up, and then you can contextualize it basically using the large language models. And it's a totally different system to what is in the market. And I think through this, we are able to grab more of the market than many other firms, because we're not just an unstructured focused company. We are focusing on many different data sets and data qualities. And that's why I said we are, as a core, I would put our USB data engineering, because data is the most important thing. And there are so many variations of it. And actually, that kind of brings us to where I see the future. We have got consultancies on the applications, intelligence firms on the applications, intelligence and corporate intelligence. We've got asset management firms, and then we've got consumer goods companies. And they each have got different needs, but the core tech that we've built is so flexible that they can all use it the same way, but getting what they want to use it.
The basic process is the same, but they're using it for different. Wow.
Exactly.
So it can be replicable and applicable for years to come, the basic process.
keep on growing in different industries. So that's where I want to go. Like, for example, we were approached by media companies, very large media companies recently, that they want to use the application because it gives them privacy, and they can choose whether their data is going to be ingested or not. So they have full control. And then their editors can use it to go back in time, to do research, and to connect different magazines. They have so many different magazines, this company, and to connect the outputs from these different like magazines to provide more holistic kind of view of a specific topic that they want to write about and research on.
Yes, yeah, but of course it's now confidential. It's not shared. All their new stuff is not just shared out. Yeah, which is a big risk with the other models. Yeah, absolutely. So you're an engineer by profession. What new skills have you had to evolve to become a chief executive?
Oh, a lot. I would say the most important one was patience. I think I'm by nature very impatient, and and also the work that I did after university was also in finance, which is an impatient industry. So they don't have patience either. So it either has to be perfect and on the
quick.
And quick, yes. So I had to learn to be very patient because this is not a sprint, unlike in like the industries that I worked at. It's more of a marathon. So you need to take calculated measures basically and steps in order to survive the long game. And one of them was patience, and I had to learn the hard way, basically. Okay. And then I think other things is, for example, there are many others like marketing. How do you do marketing? I didn't know how to do marketing initially, and I had to
why would you?
That. I had to learn that marketing is not just putting information out there, but actually trying to target your end clients.
Yes.
And then there's a whole circle of connecting marketing to sales that I completely missed because I didn't know.
Yes.
It's like a cyclical thing. So you market to get clients, but then you get clients, but then you got to keep marketing. So you don't just stop.
No, you can't stop. No, it's
exactly.
a constant effort.
Yes, and that was another one. And I think I'm very good with engineers and engineering, so I understand how to manage them, and that's something that has been like, I think it's through my background, to be honest. And hiring salespeople was a difficult one because
that's completely different. Yes,
completely different style. They get different pays, like even their packages are different. And for me, I had to get familiarized with that. So like initial chat that I had with the first salesperson, I was like, oh no, he's robbing me. That was the first one that went through my head. And then I realized, actually, no, this is a norm in industry. And
yes,
I didn't
the expectation. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And you've got to match that, otherwise you won't recruit. Yes, absolutely. Exactly. Wow, that's such fun. That's so interesting. So underneath that, when I've gone onto your website, I've seen quite a lot of the use of the word ethical data, ethical stuff. So for you personally, what does that mean? What are your core values? What lines will you not cross?
So we actually came up with our first, so we have a whole document on how to collect data. And that was the first thing that I came up with, is rules and regulations for the company people on how collection should be done. And what should we do with end clients data was something that was added later. But initially it was all about scraping and crawling the web. So the web has got its own rules. And these rules are generally written in little compliance section on the website. They're always like in like very small fonts. You can find them and then you can read about them. Or there's something called robot texts. And these robot texts, generally, the media companies would have them. They would allow you to scrape, like, they would tell you what you're not allowed to scrape and what you're allowed to scrape. But you, so that that is really important, to read and to understand and not to collect things that you're not supposed to collect. On top of that, social media was another one that we needed to think about. Like, how would you collect data on individuals? Individuals should be given permission, should give you permission, so to collect their individual data. That's one thing. And second thing is, if they are in a public domain, like, for example, there's a debate happening in a group, that generally is considered by many as a public data, because you're putting yourself out there and you're putting your opinion out there. So your opinion can be quoted. So if your opinion can be quoted, therefore your opinion can be taken. So these rules, I think, it's not very clear to consumers, but it's clear when it comes to data regulations. So we had to write a lot about that as well. And then another one was about end clients' data. So how do we handle that, right? To ensure that there's no data breach, to ensure that they're comfortable with whoever is accessing their data. So in the contracts that we write 2 engineers' name plus my name, so that we are taken accountable if something goes wrong with their data. So not just the company, but us 3 as well.
Individually, yeah.
And I think that is really important, because that gives the end clients confidence that you're not just playing with their data or taking their data without their consent. And they have the ability to delete things and input new data basically in the system. So they're in full control of their data. And so
you're not keeping it, you don't have it as such, it's theirs, and they amend it. You're just holding it to reflect back to them, you do the sort of the search and then reflect back the information, but it's not your information.
It is forever the client's, and it's written clearly in the application that in the contract that we write them, that data does not belong to us, it is theirs, and they have full responsibility for that data. And if something goes wrong, for example, there's a data breach, we are responsible for that. If something, like, for example, if there is a data that is not supposed to be in the application, they are responsible for it. So
yes. So it sounds like integrity would be one of your core words.
Yes. Very important. I think integrity, ethics of collecting data, all very important. Without these in place, I think, especially with the regulations that are probably going to come out under Labour government, I think we would not be in a good place, but we are currently in a good place. And as a startup, I think it's really important to build the foundation correctly, because otherwise, you never know, maybe you want to sell your company later and then to somebody, and then that would be a whole due diligence done. And then if there is any breach, any sort of problems, you are in trouble, basically.
You're going to be in trouble. Yeah, absolutely. So has holding to these values caused you any issues in the time you've been running the business? Have there been any conflicts?
Issues, like, for example, when the clients go on the application, some of them, they ask for can we see like the media sources that you've included, for example, and sometimes they like certain media sources, so then we have to remove them from the system, and then it's a bit of a hassle on that front.
The media source have said that we want to be anonymous or not anonymized.
Not want the specific, because we only scrape public information that we are allowed to scrape. So maybe a website that we are scraping is not a website that they like. So then they say, can you remove all the content from this, for example, specific website? We don't want to see anything. And so that's a whole other hassle right there. And that's an issue. But with regards to content, there's always content. Like, you won't believe this, but the articles that FT produces, like they are rewritten by different media sources, but with like 1 or 2 sentences difference.
Okay, I do believe, people poaching other people's journalism. Yes,
they pass it as their own, which is
I was quite interested in your on the website. It said, as a for instance, you said that a client could say, we don't want the BBC or something like that. But if you're trying to present to the client all the options, and to help them really fully understand the theme and the depth of their topic. How does it help that client to enable them to take out one whole stream of information? And do you push back and say, well, you really need to keep that in? How do you manage that?
So I spoke to one of my advisors, William Nattenbelt, about this at length, actually. And one of the things that we said was that we always say to the end clients that we are meant to give you the whole view of a topic. So if you're just removing something because you don't like it, or a few things that you don't like, then you are customizing it and you're creating basically the bubbles, like your own
You
bubble.
were creating your own bubble, yeah.
And by creating this bubble, you might miss crucial information. And I've been asked by clients, why don't you just weight some journals, like media companies or sources, more than others? And I said, but I'm introducing my own bias. And would I like you to have my bias, or should we allow you to have your own bias, for example, in the system? I don't think so. I think you should be unbiased when you're getting an information, and you should get everything about that piece of information. And I always give them an example, like when COVID happened, the news was out there, like Guardian was reporting on it, Telegraph was reporting on it. 2019, I remember November, I was reading.
Right. It was out, wasn't it? Understanding the whole width of the debate is really important. Yes. So, but nevertheless, some clients will not accept certain streams of information.
Yes. Sometimes some clients will ask us to remove certain things. Like, for example, some clients don't even want to see the data that we've collected. They just want to see their own data. So they only want to have that echo chamber of like information, like especially consumer goods companies. They say, oh, we don't want to see your data, we just want to see our own data. But actually it's a bit of a bizarre thing, because as a consumer goods company, you should care about what's out there.
The consumer view. Yeah, absolutely. The wider view. Yes. Interesting. Yeah. So going forward, how do you think you'd manage that? Because that seems to be a potential conflict. You're setting up to provide people this all-seeing eye almost, and some people are choosing to almost be blind, but you can't help them to the full extent if they adopt that choice. That's a bit of an irony, really. Have you any thoughts about that going forward?
So we said that it's okay if a client doesn't want to use all the data that is available to them. So if they just want to use their own data and just optimize their search on their own data, that's fine. I think a lot of companies have got more data that exists online, basically. So I was reading, I think JP Morgan has got 4 trillion data or something like that, and crazy amounts of data. Or something more than that. I can't remember the exact number, but there was
very large. That's internal to them. You're saying, yes. Then, they've got enough. They've got more than enough to cope with. Yes.
So they can't access. A lot of companies can't access their data. Like I was talking to a company, consumer goods again, and they have issues with linking data from different databases. So they like so many different databases, and linking everything together is a huge task. And I think they're struggling with that. And without that linked data, you're not going to get good outputs when you're using these machine learning algorithms. So a lot of the companies are struggling with that. And that's where we are seeing like our USP playing really well. And we're going and saying, it's okay if you don't want to use our data, but the application comes with its own default data, and we can shut it down for you, and you can just access your own data, basically. And that's also a possibility. So it becomes a search engine, but on internal data, basically.
Just on their own. Yes, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, absolutely. So your team is expanding. You've gone from, I don't know, 1 or 2 of you. How many people are you now?
We are about 17 people with advisors counted in as well.
Okay. And what challenges have you met with? You did mention the sales force, the sales team recruitment. Has it brought with you, it brought any other challenges? Because it's quite rapid growth. That's only in a year or two, isn't it?
That's correct. No, I think bringing people in on board is a sales process, basically.
You've got to sell to them how good it will be to work with you.
Basically, you're always selling. You're selling in 3 different ways. When you are a founder, you're selling to your investors, you're selling to your clients, and then you're selling to your employees, because your employees are also, they need to be sold to as well. It's
Yes.
not just like, oh, like they will see the value and they will be onboarded. So I spoke to a few people, a few founders, when they first started their company, they were quite rude actually to their employees, and then they realized that that's not the way to work. And
no, I suppose you're so focused sometimes when you start off, you can't see any width. You just want to get to where you want to go. Yeah, I can understand that.
In my case, I focused it predominantly like a marathon. Like, it's a long game. We are together for a long time, so let's make each other happy. So that's what I do with my employees. I try to make sure that they're happy, they are taken care of, and they're doing, like, if they need a resource, I try to get that for them so that they can get on with their job and not struggle.
I like that.
Yeah, because that's so important. Without that, you're not going to have a healthy environment. You're not going to make progress. Like, the progress we make, clients gets on a call with us every now and then, and they say, it's actually shocking how much progress you've made from 2 months ago, because it means that the like, we are continuously getting feedback and we adjust.
Yes.
But
wow.
But that's because people in the company are feeling relaxed and they're not feeling stressed, and they are excited about what we are building. And on top of that, I have created this culture where initially I said to people, if you don't know something, you are more than welcome to tell people that you don't know it. It's okay. Like,
nobody's
going to frown upon you. Nobody's going to say, bad job, you're fired. Like, this is not sort of company. So we will allow you to learn. And I think that whole, you can learn as you progress in the job, and that's very exciting for people, because they don't want to stagnate in their role.
No, and because especially in your field where it's changing almost daily, they want to grow with it. So how would you sum up your sales pitch to potential employees then?
I always say that I actually got a very good advice once from one of the founders, and he said, when you hire people, you should sit them down and say, this might not be the end of your journey. This might be like the beginning of your journey, or maybe we are the middle path. But the aim is so that we both can progress. So that's what we always say. We are here to progress together. And there might be things that I don't know that I will learn in the process of working with you, and you would teach me. And there are things that you don't know that I would teach you. So it's like an educational place rather than like a research focused place, rather than just a company. And that's basically what we say to people. And we always say that. We say research at the forefront and then everything else at the back. And I push my software engineers because for example, full stack engineers, they just like to build. They don't actually like to research. So actually it's really hard to get them into the research.
I can't stop doing that. Yeah, I've got to just carry on building. Yes.
But they have gotten into that mindset and they love it. They're like, oh, this is challenging. And like,
Okay. So you can get them to take a day off from building and then actually do some proper research. Yeah,
exactly. And they need to do that, because otherwise, like, one day of like doing proper research is not going to delay the product. It's going to actually advance the products, because if they do research properly, then they would have solutions that they can use to optimize, to build faster, to do something more exciting. Whereas like if they don't take that day, then they're not going to be able to progress, basically.
Isn't that an Einstein quote or something? He says, if I was asked to solve a problem, I'd spend 55, if I had an hour, I'd spend 55 minutes doing the research. and 5 minutes solving it. And I think it sounds like that's what you're trying to embed in DeepSearch. I love that.
We always say that data is the most important thing. So I've always said that to everyone. Like, without data, we are nothing. Because even in machine learning field, you do like 70 to 80% of the work you do is data engineering, and then the 20% is the algorithms, basically. And it's really to bear that in mind, because without that, you're not going to build great algorithms. So data is so important. It needs to be accurate. It needs to be of good quality. And without that, we're not going to go far.
It's rubbish in, rubbish out, isn't it? You can't. It's the same rule. That's been the rule forever, isn't it?
Exactly.
So with that in mind, you've recruited this team. Even in such a short time, you must have had to have some quite difficult conversations with people who have come on board, but maybe not lived to those values of integrity and or interest in research. And so how have you managed those situations?
I think the churn in the company is quite low. We've only had in the beginning, it was a bit of a chaos, actually, because it was the beginning of the company.
Yeah.
And I think I had one difficult chat with one person, because I just knew that they could push themselves a bit more.
Yeah.
And they were just not doing, and it was quite disappointing, to be honest. And I gave them a lot of chance, but then they saw it as one thing I learned when I was younger was that when you have a coach or you have a teacher that is riding you hard, is because they love you. They want you to believe in you, you know? So it's really important to know that. And sometimes I am hard with some of my employees, but because I just know their potential. And I think that's knowing their potential. If I didn't believe in them, I wouldn't spend a second with them. But if I believe
what's the point?
them, I would spend like time with them. And I think a lot of people don't know that. They don't see that as a good thing. And I learned that the hard way as well, because when I was doing swimming, when I was little, I used to do competitions, like swimming competitions and sports competitions, and then I got into piano and lots of different things. But with swimming, like your teacher, basically your coach, will walk alongside the swimming pool and would tell you, "Go on, you can do it, you can do it."
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yes, keep going, keep going.
But if they didn't believe you, they would not tell you these things. They would just say, like, "Oh, you're not going to go far, so I'm just going to take it easy."
Yeah, why am I going to push myself? And because there's a lot of energy they're putting in. Yes,
exactly. But when they believe in you, they push you to your limits. They're like, "Oh, you're not doing your hands right. Like, I've taught you this like last week. Why is it not working?" You know. And so, like, you know, this sort of repetition is really important. The repetitive information coming through is important, but also dedicating and being dedicated to a task and to progression.
Yes. But not everybody gets that. They take it as criticism, and they take it in a more negative way.
Yeah, I see that more in Gen Zs, like the new generation. They tend to have a different life-work balance.
Yes, I've heard this. Yes.
But without skill sets. So I understand life-work balance when you have skill sets, but when you don't have a skill set, you need to like put in some hours, maybe after work, to read some sort of like tech that you are using, because otherwise within work, so when are you gonna have the time to do it, right?
Yes.
Catch up on things. And I remember there was one person who joined the company initially, and they refused to join after 6 o'clock meetings with one of the guys who was teaching them how to use cloud infrastructure. And then she was given a project and she wasn't able to do. So, and at that moment, I had to sit down with her and say, like, the reason you can't do is because you didn't join those meetings. And if you had joined those meetings, then you would be in the same level as the other people in the firm.
You'd be able to do it.
Started at the same time. And she didn't like it. So she thought I was too harsh, and I was embarrassing her. That was one more other thing that I was told. And I said, no, that's not the case. I'm just trying to make you do better, like, you know. That just didn't work well. So that ended quite rapidly. That was in the beginning. But now I work differently. I'm more patient with people. So if they can't do, I'm like, okay, well, it's okay. I'll give you another few days until
Right,
you.
let's try and find a different way and a bit more time. But
And then I
you
ask
you
people to spend time with them. So I'm like, hey, like, for example, as a dean, like, you know how to work on this. Can you please go and sit down with this person and teach them? Because
yes.
they need to like come up to the level of skill set that they can do on their own. So now we teach people in the company. Like when they struggle, we're like, okay, don't hesitate, call us. We will teach you if you can't get to the solution. But initially, it was more of a every person was on their own, so they were all learning, and we were all learning together.
Yeah,
So
of course.
it required some push from the individuals, and I think when those individuals didn't have that push, it was really irritating because
Yeah, yeah. If they're not self-motivated, then it's really hard to sort of G them up, isn't it, to get them to come? Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you're working quite long hours then. How do you manage your time?
Um, to be honest, I'm obsessed with my company, so it's something I'm obsessed with. So I actually don't have a break from it ever. Like I'm always working on it, and there are times when I just close my laptop, but generally happens very late at night. So like around 10 o'clock,
Oh
there's
my
no
word.
laptop time. So like close the laptop, close the lid, no more work, but just no more devices either. Just sit down in silence, basically for a bit. And I think that is really important because you do need that kind of a break, but not so much like long hours of break. I don't really like that. I find it
You take
useless.
weekends off?
I work Saturdays. Sundays I do take off, but it's when I say I take off is I'm actually doing reading on the industry and how things are progressing. But that is my time
That's
off.
your leisure.
Yes, and I like it. I enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, then it would have been
That
not.
would be harder. But do you think it's sustainable over a longer period?
Yeah, I think so. I think as we grow, I think some of the roles that I'm doing probably going to be replaced by other people. So other people
Yes.
are going to be doing them. And so I would be left with more of a strategy focused and resource allocation kind of role. And initially, I think you do a lot of things, but as the company grows, your responsibilities changes, but then your work becomes maybe even heavier. So that's what I think, because then there are other bigger problems that you need to solve. Because at the moment the problems are small, but they're continuous. Whereas, like I think then the problems will be bigger, but less frequent. So that's what I think.
And
Will
that's take up the same amount of time will be taken up. Yes,
exactly.
probably true, actually. Yeah, that's very wise observation. So if you were looking back, oh, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, what would be, you seem to have learnt a lot in such a short time. What tips would you pass on to somebody following in your footsteps?
I would say just be patient. Put your health first. Health is so important. Accidentally, I got into this thing called 75 Hard, which is
Okay.
it's not. I don't agree with all of the things that they mentioned, but one thing that I loved about it was discipline. It teaches you discipline. So you do two 45 minutes exercises, one in the morning and one in the evening when you're end of the day. And you can choose what you want to do, but one has to be outdoors. So,
Okay.
but that means that you need to plan your day so that you have the time to do those exercises.
Totally.
And also eat well and drink water, because if
Yes, water.
you don't do that, then you're not going to be able to achieve these two 45 minutes exercises every day. So that really did help, like that discipline creation through that
Okay. So you're
really.
not on the laptop all the time. You are doing.
I would like tell myself to be more patient, or tell the person to be more patient. Ooh.
Okay.
Because it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you're
It's
not,
a marathon. I think that's a lovely piece of advice. Yes.
yes. And you're not going to compete with a unicorn company. You are early stage. You should always bear that in mind when you're starting, is that you're early stage. There are like so much you can do with your resources. You're not a 300+ company.
No, yeah, you can only do so much in a day and with the
Yeah.
money you've got. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you can't burn out your team members, because they need them as they need you. So you need to be patient and like take it slowly as day goes by. But the speed is really important. One of the things that my manager taught me at the asset management that I worked at was the speed of change, because if
Yes.
it's too fast, then people don't like it. They become resistant to it.
Yes.
They push back, or they burn out, right? Because they just don't know they need to do something, and then they burn out. However, if it is like at a good pace, I think then you have people understanding what changes are appearing, why they're appearing, what needs to happen to make them happen. And that's really important. Understanding of why change is needed is really important. I think that needs to happen at a good pace, not super fast, not super slow. Because if it's slow, you're going to lose your resources.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You're going to fritter your resources and not have changed. And people, particularly in your industry, want to see change. They do
Yes,
want to see the evolution, don't they? Yeah.
exactly.
Well, Maryam, that's a fantastic end point to close on. So we've got patience, which is a virtue, exercise and health, and try to weigh out and have a steady pace of change.
Yes,
Brilliant.
absolutely.
Well, that's been enthralling. Thank you. I'm sure everybody watching this is going to sort of reappraise their ideas about technology and AI, and actually how to start a business. So, Maryam Torshizi, thank you very much indeed.
I hope I have been helpful to somebody.
I'm sure you have. I'm absolutely convinced of it. Thank you, Maryam.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Take care.
Take care.